honorable banner that had been folded into a perfect triangle, the finely tailored gentleman laid it in the limited space that her lap provided. From behind the dark sunglasses that covered her face, Shaylynn watched the tears from her own eyes be immediately absorbed as they fell onto the red, white, and blue fabric. 23 seemed far too young to be a widow, but apparently it wasn't, because she was. The program was brief, and although well-wishers passed by and voiced remarks of how proud Emmett would have been of the noble ceremony, Shaylynn was left to take their word for it. Grief had rendered her numb and barely able to comprehend anything that had taken place, and the two officers stood at her door, with stoic faces, and gave her the news of the shooting. As the people filed by her, patting her shoulder, shaking her hand, and sometimes kissing her cheek, Shaylynn couldn't even rally a smile. Judas had kissed Jesus' cheek, too. It meant nothing. Any one of their lips could be a mark of betrayal. Each and every one of the faces she saw, whether Democrat or Republican, was a suspect. The killer was still on the run, and as far as Shaylynn was concerned, it could be any one of them, or none of them at all. She trusted no one. Without Emmett, she had no friends. Even the in-laws who sat in the chairs nearest her were estranged. She wasn't exactly the bride that his parents wanted their son to take. According to them, Shaylynn was too young, too uneducated, and far too poor to qualify for the awarding of the Ford name. They never bothered to build a relationship with her before, and without Emmett, the one person who linked them, Shaylynn didn't expect to have much of a relationship with them at all from this point forward. And in her opinion, that was just fine. Life as Shaylynn had known it for the past 5 years would never be the same. The long-term plans to repeat their marriage vows on their 10th anniversary would never be a reality. The newly constructed 4-bedroom home that she and Emmett had just moved into in preparation for their expanding family would now seem larger and emptier than ever. And just like his life, Emmett's mounting excitement about the pending birth of the child that had taken them 3 years to conceive had been cut short by an assassin's bullet. The family was asked to stand in preparation for being escorted to their cars, but Shaylynn wasn't ready to leave. Not yet, and she dared anybody to try to make her. That was her husband's body that would be encased in a casket until his flesh rotted away from his bones. It was her life that was being buried under 6 feet of filthy dirt, never to breathe again. She dared them, any one of them, to tell her how long she could linger. Shaylynn stood as directed, but as others began disappearing, her feet remained planted. Firm, she made no effort to leave. Her eyes burned from days of crying. Her body ached from lack of sleep. Her heart bled from the hole that wouldn't heal. Inhale, exhale. Even breathing was painful. With one hand, Shaylynn clung to a cluster of violets, Emmett's favorite flower. Then with the other, she hugged the flag close to her protruding belly. The damp soil beneath her feet held her in a place as steadily as stood the 2 fully dressed and alert armed bodyguards who positioned themselves on either side of her. They hadn't been able to protect her husband, and as helpless, lost, and hollow as she felt right now, Shaylynn hoped to God that if somewhere in the distance a sniper had his gun pointed in her direction, they'd fail to protect her too. Chapter 1. 7 years later. Have a good evening, Dr. Taylor. See you on Monday, Dr. Taylor. Bye, Dr. Taylor. Enjoy your weekend. Neil Taylor, Ph.D., stood in the entranceway that led to his office and answered the remarks with quiet waves and an occasional cordial nod of his head. As one of only a small handful of available men on staff, it wasn't uncommon for the women around him to vie for his attention, or at least that's the way it felt. Neil wasn't complaining about it, though. In fact, though he never voiced it, he rather enjoyed the admiration. Most of the women he worked with were easy.